Hello, my name's Eric Crump. I'm with the Homewood-Flossmoor Chronicle. Welcome to Meet the Candidates, our interview series with people who will be on the ballot in the April 1st election. Today we're talking with Dr. Camille O'Quinn, who's running for the District 233 Board of Education. So I thought we'd start, Camille, with you just telling us a little bit about why you decided to run.
Okay. I've decided to run because actually I woke up the next morning after the federal election and thought, oh boy, there's possible there'll be some pretty significant changes that will impact education. And lo and behold, we are here. I do anticipate some changes coming. So that's really why I decided to run at this time. It also was a great time because there are no incumbents running. And HF has a long history of excellence and being fantastic. So really there was no need, in my opinion, to run against the incumbents. They were doing a great job. But now that there are openings, it felt like a good opportunity for me to jump in and provide my support, especially since I do have a background in advocacy and education. It just felt like a really great time.
That's probably a pretty good opening to talk about specifically how you might be able to help the district deal with the changes that could be coming down the road. There's a stated intention on the part of the Trump administration to get rid of the Department of Education, which, even though it's not a major funding source, it does have effect on programs and on funding. And so have you given thought to, if that happens the way it's projected, how will the district be able to respond?
Yes, like I said, that's the major concern that I had when I was making the decision to run. With removing the Department of Education, of course, the questions become, how are we going to receive funding for special education? My doctorate is in special education. I'm a longtime speech language pathologist out here in the community, but I really work in the schools. And I have certification as a director of special ed. So I really embrace special education as in my work as a speech language pathologist. So yes, the concern becomes, how will we receive funding through IDEA? The other concern too, even as our students are graduating, right? The Department of Education also takes care of like the Pell Grant. So there's some funding sources that there's a big question mark as to how we'll receive that. We may need to get creative on how we're going to access funding for our students that have IEPs and 504s. We may need to get creative on how we communicate our needs to the state as it relates to IEPs, 504s, and then as our students are transitioning into college. That's something, as a board member, I'll have readily access to the budget. We'll all work together to answer those questions collectively.
Okay. Can you say just real quick, in case there are people who aren't familiar with the programs and acronyms you mentioned IDEA. Can you tell us a little bit about what those are and what they currently do for our students?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, IDEA is, it's a federal law, really, that mandates that our students that have special needs or disabilities, that they receive adequate access to the curriculum. So we have IEPs, might have heard that term, or individualized educational plans for our students that have disabilities. But then we also have 504 plans for our students that have like medical issues, but isn't really necessarily needs any kind of like support from a teacher or anything like that. So we have 504s, we have IEPs, and IDEA helps us with all of those kinds of things.
Okay, thank you. So that gives us an idea of which students will be most vulnerable to the changes that could be coming. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Our students with disabilities could be impacted to the most. So when we talk about equity and inclusion, those are concerns that I have for my students with disabilities.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Another question that school board members always wrestle with is how to fund the whole school district, not just those special programs, but property tax rates are a real issue these days, especially in our area where the bills have spiked. But the need of the schools has not been reduced, so there's a difficult balance to create there, not only in how to fund the schools, but how to also help the community deal with the difficulty of paying those bills and keeping education properly funded. So have you got ideas about how the board can, through messaging or through creative revenue generation, help the community deal with the property tax issue?
Yeah. I think we need to talk about it, that's for sure. It's a hot topic. Everyone's talking about it in their living room. I think it would be a great idea to just have an open conversation about that, either through something where all of us gather together and we can have an in-person conversation, or even if it's electronic and we can send out some surveys. My questions would be, what do you want out of the school system? Because your tax dollars are paying for these things. So I think it's a good question to ask our, community. What are some of the services? What are some of the ideas you have? It's important that we're spending our funds on, things that are centered on our students, centered on empowering our students, preparing them for not just school, but after graduation, and then supporting our educators as well. So, coming together to have those conversations about how we're using our funds, and ensuring we have the support of the community as we're making those decisions.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, the conversation would be good, and that's actually another thing I didn't really have on my list, but maybe you could talk about is how can the board help those conversations become more frequent and inclusive? Because I know that the board has meetings once a month, a business meeting and committee meetings and everything, but the community doesn't really come out to those as much unless there's a controversy maybe or something. But do you have ideas about how to bring people into those conversations about school resources?
Mm-hmm. Well, I like that term, inclusive. Yes, be inclusive. I think it would be great to open up regular conversation to our community. I said that. Some ideas might be roundtable discussions where we have listed exactly what the subject matter is going to be, and then we can reach out to the community so that we can have some discussion in addition to our board meetings, which are always open and all are welcome. But in addition to that, naming some topics or some hot topics that are occurring and that everyone's talking about in their living room, right? Bring it to a roundtable discussion that we can have right here at HF High School.
Good suggestion, I like that. Another funding issue, it's connected to the property tax issue and to the messaging issue, is the facilities at the school, which HF has always been proud of its having top-notch facilities and invests a lot of money in renovations and in additional construction, especially in recent years. How do you think the board and the district do in terms of communicating to the community why that investment is made in facilities?
Yeah, I know a lot of these things come up, in our board meetings, which again are always open to everyone, and the minutes. So, it's a matter of coming to those kinds of things and those discussions at the board meeting. But in addition to that, I do think it's possible a conversation surrounding some of those round table discussions that I mentioned. That might be another good place where we can be specific and talk about some building and how this funding is, how that was funded, what it will be used for, who will benefit from it, and how our teachers will be trained and hired to support that initiative.
Okay, great. We haven't talked yet about some of the, I guess, cultural, emotional impacts that students have experienced since the pandemic. And I think perhaps a related and specific issue is dealing with cell phone usage, because one thing about the pandemic is it forced us all online.
Right.
Now everybody has a phone, everybody uses a phone daily, all day long, all night long. But it also is a problem in the classroom. And I wondered how you thought about the general issue of how to help students and teachers maintain their emotional health in stressful times, and also how to use the tools well, like cell phones.
Yeah.
And is the district on the right track in terms of managing cell phones?
I do think the district is on the right track of managing cell phones. And I say that as an educator, as an administrator, and as a parent. My daughters are freshmen here at HF, and they have talked openly about the changes in the cell phone policy, but they've also talked openly about how it's been just fine. And in fact, beneficial, they feel like too. So I really listen to that. I think it's important that we listen to our teachers, listen to our staff, but it's also important we get some feedback from our students. And by and large, I've heard collectively from a lot of the students, not just my children, that it seems to be working out just fine. I completely agree with you that the pandemic has changed everything, and we're still feeling the ramifications of that today. I have the unique experience of having been a student, a parent, and a teacher all at the same time during the pandemic. So I kind of felt it on different angles and different perspectives. So I can tell you too that social emotional health became a huge priority in the schools. And I do, again, think HF is on the right track by providing those services to the students as needed. We can use that data depending on how our students are responding to that level of support. Some need more, some need less. MTSS is a program called that stands for Multi-Tiered System of Support, and that does a really good job of collecting data, analyzing the data, allowing us to know what our students need, what's working, what might be necessary next. Again, I think HF is doing a really great job of those things.
All right. Yeah, you definitely experienced the pandemic, didn't you?
Oh my goodness.
What helped you most get through all that?
My family. I think my husband, Troy O'Quinn, I always say his full name, Troy O'Quinn. He's been a great support. I know that I'm not speaking for just myself when I say family was so important during that time. Who was in your household, and then who you were able to Zoom with down the street. I Zoomed with my parents a couple times. So I think family was really helpful. And then we had a little small bubble in our tiny little community. That was really helpful too.
Yeah, yeah, there were some bright spots in it too, in terms of bringing people together, using new tools to do so, but yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. The main issues that I was hoping to talk about, we've kind of covered, but I want to make sure that you get the last word. And are there things that we haven't talked about, even large issues or small things or goals that you have that you want to make sure the community knows about you as a candidate?
No, I think we covered it all. The big thing is that I have the utmost respect for HF. I grew up in the community, and so HF has always been a bright spot here in the Chicago Southland. When I was looking to raise my children, I intentionally looked in the HF district to purchase a home. So HF is fantastic. It has an excellent reputation and is continuing to do great. As an educator, my main mission is to support our teachers as they're in the classroom, provide them with the tools that they need to be successful, and then support our students so that they have everything they need to for rigorous academics. Our extracurriculars are wow. My daughters were just in the play recently, so I mean the extracurriculars are really fantastic, and not just for the students, right? It's an outreach to the community. So yes, those are my my main mission is to continue to keep HF in the excellent gem that it has always been right here in the Chicago Southland.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much, Camille. We appreciate you taking the time to talk with us and help the community understand what you would bring to the board.
Great.
So good luck on April 1st.